One moonlit night, a girl shakes from crying as a maid puts makeup on her face. Behind her, another girl walks out onto a stage where leering nobles start bidding on her. Tears stream down the girl's face as the nobles bid higher and higher. Meanwhile, in a private booth, Marquess collide. The lady in charge is annoyed at the cheapskate nobles. Backstage, the girl keeps crying and begging for her mother when a white-haired girl tells her that she should try to look pretty for her. When the white-haired girl's turn comes up, she confidently walks out onto the stage. The nobles are stunned at her beauty and arms quickly rise up to bid on her. As the bidding continues, the girl abruptly chants a spell and a bright light consumes the place. She summons a key to break her handcuffs and creates a gun. With it, she starts massacring the nobles. When the workers hear the commotion and try to see what's happening, the maid retrieves a spear underneath her skirt and stops them. She also gives the keys to the other girls and advises them to flee. Meanwhile, guards finally arrive and confront the white-haired shooter. Upon clashing weapons with the guards, the girl was blasted back and she realizes that these opponents are magic users. The two girls, Daya and Tart, are now facing off with the guards. Tart buys enough time fighting the guards for Daya to cast a spell that makes the whole room explode. The explosion alerts and signals another group outside of the castle, Lug and Maha. Lug readies his gun and snipes the mastermind of the slave ring, Marquess Collide. As the gunshot resonates in the air, Lug's mind was transported back to his past life when he was still a killer for hire on Earth training a rookie. Being an old veteran assassin, he advises his rookie companion on how assassinations work. After killing key people, the assassin starts leaving amidst the protest of his rookie partner. The rookie girl points out that they can wipe out all the mafia right now, but the old man reminds her that it's not their mission. They aren't heroes of justice, but just tools of the organization. Thus, he orders her to stand down and start packing their stuff. And yet, even the best laid plans can go awry since a military drone manages to spot them. The assassin quickly gets behind the wheel of their escape van and drives away. Military vehicles quickly chase after them and gunshots erupt from their van. The military shoot back in self-defense and the van explodes in a fiery explosion. However, this was all planned by the assassin since he instructed his rookie assistant to rig some machine guns in the back. The van's bumpy ride makes the guns shoot automatically, and with it still running through the road, the assassin and his rookie jumped out. The unmanned yet still running and shooting vehicle acted as a lure for the militaries to chase while they hid in the rocks away from the road. While the assassin treats the injuries from their escape, he can't help but ponder how a drone wasn't expected in their plans. Did someone make a mistake? They then settle into rest since moving at night would make them more easily spotted by the thermal cameras of drones. As they lay on the ground resting, the rookie asks the assassin why he became a killer in the first place. The old man narrates how he was raised by their organization as an assassin since he was a child. Thus, he had no choice and it was all he ever knew. However, old age is catching up to him, so he decided to retire after this job and teach new assassins instead. That was actually why he brought a novice in this mission to act as a practice run. The rookie gets offended by getting called a novice, and she exclaims that she's the best in her generation. In an instant, the assassin pointed his gun at her and asked her a couple of questions. First, why is the gun pointed at her right now? When she answered that she didn't know why, the assassin told her that it was because she trusted him, something an assassin shouldn't do. The second question is why is she not trying to fight back? When she replied that because she knows her skills won't work against him, the assassin points out that this is exactly why she's a novice. She didn't have faith in her own abilities. He then hands the gun to her and tells her that they should sleep for the night. The assassin curls down to sleep, but the girl pulls the gun back out and aims it at the assassin. When the assassin doesn't move, she asks him why he trusts that she won't shoot. The assassin reveals that it wasn't that she won't shoot, it's that she can't. He had given her the gun empty, and he scolds her for not noticing the lack of weight. The next day, the organization congratulates them for a job well done. They then use fake passports given by the organization to get on an airplane and conclude their mission. However, it didn't end well. The plane suddenly shakes as news broke out that it was hijacked. The assassin realized that the organization wasn't leaving any loose ends, and the rookie girl was sent with him to distract him. The organization was probably also the one who tipped off the military so they would show up and corner them. He headed to the cockpit to check the pilots, but they were all dead and the controls were all busted. Outside, a fighter jet sends a missile their way and the plane explodes, killing the world's finest assassin. As the assassin's consciousness slowly fades into oblivion, he doesn't understand why the organization betrayed him. The emotions he suppressed are returning, and for the first time in a while, the assassin felt frustrated. Thankfully, it didn't end there as the assassin abruptly finds himself in a mysterious place in front of a goddess. The goddess offers him two choices: be reborn on Earth with a clean slate, or be reincarnated in another world with his memories. The tempting offer piques the curiosity of the assassin, and he asks her who he has to kill. The goddess smirks and reveals to him that his only target will be the hero. The assassin and the goddess settle into some seats after the assassin accepts the job. Since he was born, he suppressed his emotions and lived as a tool for killing people. And yet, he had regrets at the end of his life. If he gets another chance at life, then he wants to live his own life. The goddess replies that he's fine to live as he wishes as long as fulfills the mission. To start, she transfers to him the knowledge of his new world. He will be reborn in a fantasy world of swords and sorcery, and he has 18 years to kill the hero. But why would he need to kill the hero in the first place? Well, 16 years from now, the hero will defeat the demon lord and save the world. But after that, the hero himself will use his power to plunge the world into chaos and destroy it. Thus, he needs to kill the hero exactly after they kill the demon lord but before they destroy the world. The assassin ponders his mission and points out that humanity in this new world has limits. The only one who doesn't is the hero, who possesses abilities far greater than other humans. In other words, he has to kill a non-standard monster using his standard abilities. Therefore, he asks the goddess to give him the best possible abilities to start off with. The goddess concedes with the assassin's reasoning and grants him the highest stats a normal human can have. Not only that, she will also allow him to choose his own magic attributes and 5 skills to be born with. There are 123,581 skills in total with 5 ranks, and the assassin is free to choose one from each rank. Meanwhile, the hero has 30 skills, with at least 5 of them being S rank. This means that he has to choose his own 5 carefully. For the rarest S rank skill, he chooses Rapid Recovery. For an A rank skill, he selects Spell Weaver, the ability to create new spells. For B rank, he takes Limitless Growth. In C rank skills, he picked Martial Arts. And lastly, D rank skills are skills everyone has. One of the abilities surprises him and he quickly selects that. As for magic attributes, this usually consists of the 4 elements, plus light and dark. Humans typically only have one. But the assassin decides to select all 4 elements in exchange for not being able to specialize in only one. With his choices made, the goddess reborns him into the house of Tuatha, a noble house of assassins. When he opens his eyes, the face of his parents, Sion and Esri Tuatha, welcomes him and names him Lug. Sion declares that he will be trained as an assassin and will be raised as his heir, making Esri tear up upon remembering their first child who died on the job. 7 years pass since he was born, and Lug is now honing his skills in the forest. He still cannot use magic since he needs a mentor for that. But he is still strengthening his mana by hunting animals in the forest. After bringing home his meat, he prepares it himself by using his past knowledge of nutritional science to ensure optimal growth. His parents are amazed at his skills not only in cooking but even in inventing new cooking equipment and methods such as the pressure cooker. They then eat together as a family, something Lug never experienced in his previous life. The food he made in his previous life tasted far better than what he prepared now. His tools and ingredients were also more sophisticated back on Earth. But for some reason, to Lug's taste buds, the meal today with his family tastes far much better. After eating, Lug heads to the Tuatha training room. Here, his father orders him to strip his clothes and perform their kata. With each movement, Sion carefully checks his body, the development of his muscles, the growth of his skeletal structure, and even the range of motion of his joints. This information is then used to decide the next course of their assassination training. On the exterior, the House of Tuatha are their kingdom's greatest medical experts, and secretly, they are the royal family's assassins. To prepare him as his heir, Lug is extensively trained in martial arts, weapons handling, as well as medical techniques. It is actually pretty convenient for Lug to be reborn in that family since he can use them for his mission to assassinate the hero. After their training, Sion commends Lug's growth and announces that he now has enough strength to withstand the operation. He will now be given the mystic eyes of Tuatha. This is a secret magical surgery done by their house to strengthen their eyesight, even allowing them to perceive mana. With it, they can see at great distances. It improves their dynamic visual acuity, depth perception, and low-light vision. A few days later, a bandaged and blindfolded Lug is being fed by Esri. Her mother was glad to be able to baby Lug again, and she even offers to nurse him like a baby. It was too bad Lug wasn't able to see the valleys before him. Thankfully, his father arrives and rescues him from his mother's embrace. He then informs him that his eyes have healed enough for the bandage to be removed. As the bandage slowly unfurls across Lug's head and his vision returns, the sprawling lands of their region welcome him. By focusing his eyes, he can even see the villagers planting crops and gossiping in their houses. In the river, he can spot the fish, and in the forest, he can perceive the birds. When looking at his father, he can see the mana emanating from his body too. Lastly, his father reveals to him that his final wish is being granted. A magic teacher will be arriving at their estate. His mother excitedly prepares Lug for their visitor's arrival by making him wear her favorite dresses. When the horses arrive, he and his father wait as a girl disembarks from the carriage. He was surprised to learn that his mentor will be a child like him. The girl, Dia comments that Lug seems to be too young to learn magic, but Cyan defends him and assures her that he is a genius like her. The girl intently stares at Lug and decides to demonstrate her mastery of magic. A fiery explosion suddenly erupts right in their estate's courtyard, and Dia introduces herself once more as one of her kingdom's top 5 mages. Dia's first order of business in teaching Lug magic is to determine his capacity. To do this, she hands him a far stone, a stone that can be used to store mana. She instructs Lug to pour all his mana into it, and Lug does so, making the stone shine brightly. Dia is amazed since not even adults can produce that much mana, but Lug actually still wasn't finished. He pours more of his mana into the stone, making waves of energy radiate off of him and the surroundings shake violently. Dia is dumbfounded and scared, while Lug determines his mana is still not enough to defeat the hero. All of a sudden, the stone starts to crack and Dia hurriedly shouts at Lug to throw it away. He uses his physical reinforcement to send the stone high into the air, and it explodes in a blinding flash, breaking all of the windows in the castle and flattening the trees all around. The sudden explosion makes Cyan and Esri come running to check up on them. Dia apprehensively explains that she was just trying to measure Lug's mana, but it wasn't his fault. Dia was afraid that they would be scolded, but the two parents were actually overjoyed that their son could wield such powerful magic. However, Cyan asks Dia to focus on teaching Lug magic for assassination, not war. Lug then asks Dia for more far stones, but Dia sadly informs him that it's the treasured resource of her home region in the Swojal Kingdom. Later that night, Lug is preparing for bed while thinking of ways to secure more far stone. After seeing its destructive potential, he observes that it can be used in assassinating the hero. To his surprise, Dia knocks into his bedroom and proceeds to lie in bed with him. She proclaims that his big sister Dia will sleep with him from now on. As his mentor, she had decided to treat him as a little brother, a fate worse than being friend-zoned. The next day, Dia hands Lug a far stone to determine his mana attributes. She was amazed to learn that Lug has 2 mana attributes just like her, but Lug urges her to check the other ones, and she finds out that he actually has all 4 elements, making him the first in the world. Next, Dia tells him that he would first need to convert his mana's attributes to cast spells. Thanks to Dia's guidance, Lug can feel his colorless mana slowly taking on color and being reborn with purpose. Afterward, he tries filling up a far stone again, and this time, he was able to make it dyed in the color of earth. All of a sudden, archaic letters start appearing in Lug's eyes, and Dia tells him that this means he learned a spell. When one takes on mana from one of their attributes, one learns spells as a revelation from God. The more often he casts them, the more new spells he'll receive. Dia demonstrates the spell Create Copper, making a block of copper appear in her hands. Lug copies her, and he was able to create a chunk of copper, surprising Dia once again. A week later, Lug manages to create copper just as well as Dia. This makes Lug wonder if he can cast a spell off a transcription written by someone instead of the letters in his head. To test this, she has Dia write the spell for creating iron. To their amazement, he manages to cast it. This proved Lug's hypothesis that people in this world consider spells as being given by God, so they never tried writing them down. Lug also notices that the copper and iron spells have nearly identical incantations, so he asks Dia to write all the incantations she knows. He guesses that they might be able to create a new spell only by changing parts of an incantation. A few hours later, Lug determines that the spell uses the elements specific gravity, melting point, and atomic weight to cast spells. By changing those parameters, they try to cast Create Gold. At first, Dia wasn't able to do it while Lug could because of his skill Spellweaver, the ability to create new spells. However, when he writes it down for her, Dia can now cast it too by reading it. With that, the two happily promise to help each other create new spells. 2 weeks later, Lug and Dia can now create guns using earth magic and shoot bullets using fire magic. However, this still wasn't nearly enough firepower to take down the hero. He decides to create another much more powerful weapon, a cannon. He instructs Dia to cover his ear and sends a shot into an island in the middle of a lake, obliterating it. Daya shouts at him that his cannon is too powerful, but Lug just stares at the cracked nozzle of his smoking weapon, wondering how to make it stronger. Later that night, as they were about to sleep, Daya hugs Lug and tells him that she wishes she doesn't have to leave after finishing teaching Lug. Lug gets up from bed and uses his magic to create a special knife made from titanium alloy. He then gives the beautiful knife to Daya and tells her that it's the product of their spells. Daya also gives him her necklace made from a special far stone, and Pinky promises to visit each other in the future. The next day, Daya says farewell to Lug and his parents. After she leaves, Cyan turns to Lug and informs him that he must now learn the truth about their family, Tuatha. They then rode a carriage to a nearby prison where Lug can further hone his skills. Cyan tells Lug that he has to practice killing so that he won't freeze up when he has to kill someone. Lug asks his father why he was raised to be hesitant when taking a life when they could have raised him to suppress his emotions and easily eliminate their targets. However, Cyan reminds him that they are not tools, they are humans. They must possess human values so they can read the minds of others. In summary, humanity is a necessary weapon for assassination. They then enter a dimly lit room where Lug can see a gagged crying woman inside. Cyan removes her gag and she immediately begs them to let her go. However, Cyan pays her no mind and instead explains to Lug that she was stealing from a house and killed its occupants when she was caught. The girl cries out that she was so hungry that she had to steal, but she didn't mean to kill them. Lug calmly approaches the woman and slits her wrists. The woman immediately gets angry and shouts at Cyan for tricking him. She was instructed to win over Lug with her tears so that she'll be spared, so why are they still executing her? She curses at both him and Lug, promising to kill them as she did her past victims. Seeing her true nature, Lug mercilessly throws the knife at her. One bleak and cold day, an emaciated girl is walking and stumbles through the forest alone. She had been abandoned by her poor family since they needed to reduce the number of mouths to feed during winter. With snow falling all around her and hungry wolves surrounding her, she cries out that she still doesn't want to die. A few days earlier, Lug and his parents were strolling through town enjoying the bountiful harvest festival of their region. Cyan even points out that the cream stew Lug spread throughout the townsfolk seems to be a popular meal. While Cyan is appreciating the good harvest, Lug is looking through the crowd of people with his Tuatha eyes, trying to find someone who has mana. He manages to find an old man, but he isn't suited to what he's looking for. In reality, he's looking for someone to be his assistant. However, most people who have mana are nobles, so they're difficult to recruit, so he has to find a rare mana-rich commoner. A few days later, he goes out on his usual hunting trips before the snow fully sets in. That's when he senses a pack of wolves hunting their prey. To his surprise, this prey turns out to be a sickly human girl. When a wolf pounces on the girl, Lug quickly shoots it down and he lands right beside the girl. He hands her all his weapons and decides to take the opportunity to practice himself against the other 5 wolves. Using magic, Lug arms hands with metal bracers and creates a knife. With them, he was able to block the wolves' bites and stab them with his blade. After managing to eliminate all the wolves, he turns to the girl and asks for her story. The girl feebly explains how her family had abandoned her to increase their chance of surviving the winter, so she had no choice but to brave the forests. She was hoping to visit the region of Tuatha since she heard they were much more bountiful than the region they were currently working on. After hearing her story, Lug prepares porridge for her and feeds her. Lug recalls how he heard that the lord of the neighboring region is incompetent and greedy, giving exorbitant taxes to the people he ruled over. It looks like the sickly girl before him is a victim of his tyrannical rulership. Lug then reveals to the girl that he is actually the son of the Lord of Tuatha. The girl was surprised at this and replied that God actually told her in a dream that she would have a fateful encounter. After hearing this, Lug decides to take her in and invites her to his place. He promises to feed and shelter her if she would work for him. After all, he needs her. However, he warns her that he killed people before and he will continue killing people in the future. The girl was undisturbed by this since for her, Lug is still a good person for saving her. Moreover, no one told her she was needed before and this made her really happy. As such, Lug had found his assistant, a girl named Tart. In reality, from the very first moment Lug had seen Tart, he had observed that she has mana, the very quality he was looking for. That was why he saved her. Then, when she mentions that God visited her dreams, he realized that the goddess probably sent her his way. He was then very kind to her and even revealed that he killed people. Sharing secrets is a good way to earn someone's trust. And since she made the final decision, Tart wouldn't recognize that Lug had effectively brainwashed her into being his assistant. Everything went according to Lug's plans. 40 years ago, the goddess actually sent someone else besides the assassin to kill the hero. He was the world's finest special forces soldier. Now, the goddess is checking up on him, but he turned out to be a drunk shut-in after getting reincarnated in his new life. Meanwhile, Lug is now 12 years old and he is awakened by Tart. Tart had grown into a beautiful girl who dutifully serves as Lug's servant. During breakfast, she wipes Lug's mouth and offers him his coffee. Even Esri and Cyan praise her skills and focus on serving Lug. After breakfast, Lug instructs Tart to go to the training room where she instructs her to strip. Just as his father had done to him when he was a child, Lug makes Tart perform their kata as he checks the growth of her body. In just 2 years since meeting her, Tart had acquired a body worthy of an assassin and refinement appropriate for an aristocrat's servant. After checking her growth, Tart tried to attack Lug with a knife, but Lug easily disarmed her. She then apologizes for failing once again. Tart might be hardworking, but Lug had noticed that her progress with combat skills has been painfully slow. The only thing she's good at is handling a spear, but that wasn't really a weapon suited for assassination. Thus, he has to create a knife fighting program suitable for her. Later that night, Lug finds Tart still training with a knife. Tart apologizes for not meeting Lug's expectations, but Lug just tells her that they would just have to change their approach. Using earth magic, he creates a folding spear for Tart and gives it to her. Tart tries it out and she easily destroys the sparring dummies. And yet, it can still be easily hidden for assassinations. Lug applauds Tart's skills and informs her that she's just what he needs. The next day, Lug is woken up by Tart just as usual. But this time, Tart is actually lying down in bed beside him and quickly hugs him tight. 35 years earlier, the goddess had once again sent forth another reincarnation with the mission to kill the hero. This time, she chose the world's finest samurai. The samurai humbly accepts the mission and gets reincarnated in the fantasy world. After 35 years, she is now checking up on her reincarnation's progress, but the samurai just rushes at someone who looks like the hero and gets blown away by magic fire. Meanwhile, Lug and Tart are visiting the market. There, the townsfolk shower Lug with gifts for his various help throughout the season, from teaching them about fertilizers or filling the reservoir with water. When someone asks for help like his cow being injured, Lug doesn't hesitate to offer his expertise and magic. As they were going back, their carriage was laden with produce and gifts. Tart compliments Lug's kindness, but Lug explains that gaining gratitude and recognition among people is just a necessary part of managing a region. Tart can't help but compare it to her home region, where there was a rift between the hearts of the people and the lords. Back at home, Lug checks his hidden supply of far stones. He had learned how to produce them by analyzing the one Daya gave him, and ever since then, he's been carrying them around, filling them with mana, and stockpiling them. The more mana he expends, the more it grows, and by saving them like that, he can always use them as weapons. Afterward, Cyan summons him to a meeting where he starts asking about Tart. Lug elaborates on how Tart is now on the level of their branch families. However, this wasn't what Cyan was asking for. Cyan had suspected that Tart might be a spy sent to steal the Tuathida techniques. Lug assures him that based on his 2 years of observation, Tart is innocent. He has been examining her through regular conversation, her eye contact, the number of times she blinks, her blushes, her breathing, pulse, and perspiration. From that, he concludes that Tart is honest to a fault. Of course, it was natural to be cautious. Lug was failing to find a commoner with mana in their region, and all of a sudden, he finds a mana-rich orphan girl in the forest. Their meeting was the miracle of a lifetime. It's only natural to assume someone might have set it up. With their suspicions about Tart cleared, the two continue and discuss their next topic, a special test for Lug. If he passes this test, he will be recognized as a full member of the family and will be given jobs as an assassin. The exam, a fight between father and son. The test takes place in the forest where Lug is now stealthily traveling through in his assassin attire. Since this is a fight between assassins, it won't be a fair exchange of blows. They'll both try to take each other by surprise, so whoever finds their opponent first will have the advantage. All of a sudden, arrows start hitting the place where Lug was, but he fortunately manages to hide behind a tree. Using the arrow's trajectory, he manages to locate his father and he throws some knives at him. When Cyan dodges, Lug goes straight for close quarters combat. The two dodges each other's knife attacks. When Lug kicks Cyan, Cyan slams his elbow on his foot, breaking his ankle and forcing Lug to retreat and hide. Lug heals his injured foot and assesses his situation. He is stronger and faster than his father, and he also has his previous assassination experience. And yet, Cyan is leading him around by the nose. Lug accidentally activates a tripwire and he deftly dodges the wooden pikes shot at him. However, this was all a decoy, since the real threat is Cyan pouncing on him with a blade. They exchange blows once again until Cyan retreats. Lug realizes that Cyan is predicting all his movements, the creaking of his muscles, his perspiration, breathing, gaze, smell, and flow of mana, all because his father possesses the world's finest medical knowledge and understanding of the medical body. Lug changes his strategy and decides to focus on Cyan's movements rather than moving around himself. He closes his eyes and senses the bloodlust in his surroundings. He dodges the bloodlust from both his sides as knives come whistling past him, but he knows all of these are just a feint since his father would conceal his bloodlust until the end. Just as he predicted, his father comes crashing down on top of him with his knife and stabs him in the shoulder. However, he had already placed his knife against Cyan's throat, winning the battle overall. His father compliments him as he bandages Lug's wounds and points out that Lug was even holding back by not using his magic, his best weapon. However, Lug explains that if he used magic, then it would render the duel pointless since this was supposed to be an exam to be an assassin, not a fight. Cyan acknowledges Lug for seeing the true purpose of the test and announces that from then on, Lug will assist him in his missions. True to his word, Cyan starts bringing Lug to his missions, whether it's slitting someone's throat, poisoning someone, and more. On one of their targets, he even shows Lug how to seem that the victim noble was killed by bandits he conspired with, scaring other nobles who would want to work with bandits. Of course, Cyan still goes to sick nobles who call upon them and act his disguise as a doctor. He then tells Lug that he would need a false identity himself if he aims to disguise his way to a target. For that, he had arranged a fictional person for Lug to become, a bastard child of the head of the Balor Trading Company, Ilig Balor. Until he turns 14, Lug will train to become a merchant as Balor's son. Back at the villa, a large party was held by the Tuatha for Lug. The branch families commend Luke for passing his final test at only the age of 12, an excellent feat. However, a young cousin named Rana angrily throws his wineglass at Lug. He refuses to accept that a boy younger than him will be the next head of the house. He exclaims that he's stronger so he should be the next head. Cyan accepts his words and decides that if Lug shows that he's stronger, then no one should complain. Rana accepts this too, but in an instant, Lug was already behind him with a knife to his throat, demonstrating his superior assassination skills. Rana declares that he still hasn't surrendered and charges at Lug, and Lug uses his own momentum to throw him into the ground and break his arm. It looks like Lug wasn't only a better assassin, but is even stronger at a straight-up fight. A little while later, Lug meets with Rana in the garden once again, who asks him if he comes to gloat. After all, he lost to a child like Lug. Lug, however, explains that he had defeated even Cyan, the finest Tuatha in history, so nothing that Rana can do can beat him. However, he doesn't have to. Instead, Lug asks Rana to become his subordinate. He knows that Rana is still one of the strongest warriors in their region, so he asks him to not be an assassin, but a knight of Tuatha under Lug. Rana smiles and accepts Lug's offer. As a token of appreciation, Lug gives him a sword he created with earth magic. The next day, Lug and Tart depart to the city of Miltew to start the next step of his training, creating the persona of the merchant, Ilig Balor. To start off his disguise, Lug dyes his hair black with magic while Tart changes her servant outfit. Meanwhile, in the merchant city of Miltew, a violet-haired child named Maha offers her service as a tour guide to newcomers in the fair city. Along with her fellow orphan, they create dolls to give to their clients and earn some money thanks to their touring service and referral fees from bars and restaurants across the city. All of these operations were thanks to Maha, who planned everything out to improve their lives. When rain falls, their services stop and instead they plan out what they should do next. Maha wants to buy new clothes for them so they can give tours to richer people. All of a sudden, a group of thugs arrives at their hideout looking to capture them. Maha tackles them, allowing the others to scatter and run away. Unfortunately, they were no match for the male adults who easily captured them one by one. They were then brought to a place outside the city where a sleazy-looking man welcomed them to the Tauren orphanage, their new home. Maha's friend, Noin, tries to protest and tells them that they were already living fine on their own, but Tauren just hits her. They were then brought into a room where the others were also imprisoned. It looks like they were captured because the Lord's wife is offering a lot of money to people who help orphans. A man then tosses a sack of root crops into the room and tells them that it was their supplies for the week. The root crops were even less than they ate when they were street urchins and tasted worse too. From that moment on, they were treated as workers in the Tauren orphanage. They do the laundry and sew clothes to be sold by Tauren. When they were slow in working, they got beaten up and imprisoned in a room. Meanwhile, Tauren lets his suspicious customers tour their workshop, looking for merchandise. When night fell, they were preparing dinner when the oldest of Maha's friends, Ifa, was summoned by the men. She was then bathed, put on clothes and makeup, and left with Torin in a carriage. A few hours later, Maha witnesses a crying Ifa with torn clothes and smudged makeup come back to the orphanage. Maha tries to console her, but Ifa just runs into a nearby barn and cries to herself. From that moment on, Ifa was always summoned and taken away by Torin, and slowly but surely, the twinkle in her eyes faded away. One day, Maha's other friends try to protest their treatment of Ifa, but they just end up going through the same thing as her. After Noin went through what Ifa experienced, she cried and started injuring her face with a sickle. Maha tried to stop her, but Noin just tells her that with her face now scarred, no one will buy her from now on. 2 years later, Maha overhears Torin talking to his men about how Maha is getting older now too. She now seems old enough to get her own customers by now. Maha is horrified at what she overhears and runs to the barn, thinking about what all her friends went through. She found herself holding the very same sickle Noin injured her face with, and wondered if she should do the same. She was about to do it when a voice behind her suddenly told her that she would be cuter if she smiled more. The boy Lug in his persona is Ilig Balor. Torin introduces Lug to the girls and announces that Lug is looking for an assistant. All the girls are surprised and excited at the thought of being taken away from the orphanage, while Maha hesitantly steps back. However, Lug steps forward and offers his hand to Maha, asking if she wants to work for him. Torin commends Lug for choosing Maha but tells him that she is special. Lug offers him more money and Torin finally relents, on the condition that Maha would need time to get ready, so Lug should return in 3 days. Maha realizes that Torin probably plans to sell her to others first during that time before handing her over to Lug. She was about to warn Lug, but Torin glared at her into silence. After Lug leaves, Maha's suspicions were confirmed as she was bathed and dressed up just like all her friends were when they were sold. Noin congratulates her for being chosen by Lug, but she also laments for not being chosen herself. Torin then brings Maha into the carriage and off they go to one of his customers. On the way there, Torin himself takes an interest in Maha's body, and he starts touching her inappropriately. Maha knows that she only has to endure 3 more days of this, and she can then go with Lug. However, Maha knows deep in her heart that she doesn't want to be defiled before she gets to live with him. She suddenly wraps herself in mana and jumps out of the carriage in an attempt to escape. She runs straight into the forest, but unfortunately, it appears that Torin's worker also has mana and he manages to block her escape route. He catches Maha and is about to ravage her when Lug finally arrives and throws him away from her. He tells them that he can see Maha's eyes earlier begging for help. Torin then arrives and orders his men to attack Lug. Maha tries to warn Lug that they have mana, but of course, Lug easily defeats the Torin and his men. Meanwhile, another girl meets up with the noble customer of Torin. He excitedly tears open the girl's dress, but soldiers suddenly break into the room and arrest him. The girl, who was tart all along, happily smiles and falls out the window. As morning arrives, soldiers raid the Torin orphanage and capture all the workers there. Meanwhile, the other girls happily drag Noin in front of a mirror where the scars her face used to be filled with mysteriously vanished. Outside, Lug offers his hand to Maha, who gladly accepts it. At the Balor household, Lug cures his new brother of a sickness, earning him the appreciation of Mr. Balor. Mr. Balor tells Lug that he accepted Lug to their family registry to repay a debt he had to Cyan. But it seems that he is now indebted to the Tuatha family once again. In exchange, he gives Lug new adoption papers, allowing Maha to be formally recognized as Lug's younger sister. The next day, Mr. Balor gives Lug his first new task as a member of their merchant family. The Balor Trading Company sells all kinds of products. Unfortunately, not all of their shops succeed. Thus, he is giving Lug one of their old failed liquor stores and he wants Lug to run it. He knows that Lug has only been there recently, but as a merchant, he can judge a person's character, and he believes that Lug is exceptional enough to succeed in this endeavor. After accepting Mr. Balor's job, Lug returns to home where Tart and Maha warmly welcome him. While they eat the dinner that Maha and Tart prepared, Lug shares the details of their new task. Lug then also reveals that he's actually planning to do something completely different with the store. Their first objective is to make money, which will allow them to keep the store open for a long time. Their second objective is to stock and sell merchandise targeted at nobles. This would allow Lug to get close to them, which they can then use in their assassinations. To accomplish all of these goals, Lug had decided to create a store for women, more specifically a cosmetics and sweets shop. After finalizing their plans, they all head to bed, with Maha and Tart knocking in Lug's bedroom and sharing his bed. Lug knows that due to Maha and Tart's sad childhoods, they usually seek human warmth, and it also reinforces their infatuation to him. 2 days later, Lug seeks a meeting with Mr. and Mrs. Balor to present a prototype product for the store he'll be opening. Mrs. Balor is cold and indifferent to Lug since she believes that he's her husband's bastard son, and she warns Lug that he should make sure his product is useful, or else. Thus, Lug explains his idea of opening a cosmetics store in the city. Mr. Balor voices his doubt about the idea since it's already a very saturated market, but Lug further elaborates that he will be making use of that. Removing cosmetics in their world takes the skin's oil with it, damaging the skin and drying it out. Therefore, what Lug actually plans to sell is a new product called moisturizer. This will moisturize dry skin and preserve its condition, rather than decorating the skin like other makeup. His product would heal and protect it, making it more naturally beautiful. Mrs. Balor tries the moisturizer out on her arm and in her face. She was surprised to see that her skin became so moist and smooth. Lug further explains that the moisturizer also acts as armor for the skin, instructing Mrs. Balor to put makeup on top of the moisturizer. Cosmetics settle much more beautifully above the moisturized skin, so this wouldn't replace existing cosmetics but instead revolutionize them. Mrs. Balor's whole attitude toward Lug changes as she sees how useful his product is, and seeing how his wife took a liking to the moisturizer, Mr. Balor approves Lug's product. Mr. Balor likes the product so much that he instructs Lug to hire men so that they can begin the mass production of the moisturizer. But Lug warns him that if they do that, then other companies might steal their formula. As such, he would need a month to finalize it all, and he informs Mr. Balor that one of the secret ingredients of the moisturizer is a medicine from Tuatha. That way, they can make the secret ingredient harder to find out, and they can even prevent the other companies from being able to buy it. On the way home, Tart congratulates Lug for their successful presentation. As a result, the Tuatha would be able to earn more money thanks to the new product, and the Balor Trading Company wouldn't be able to cast aside Lug once he's no longer useful to them. 6 months later, Balor Trading Company's new cosmetic shop named Orna is a hit amongst both nobility and commoners alike. Long lines of women form in front of the shop before it opens, and they even have to limit each customer to buying only 2 bottles of moisturizer. The shop is staffed by Maha's friends, with Maha acting as the assistant store manager. Meanwhile, Lug had received numerous invitations from nobles all throughout the land, making his sneaking much easier. Tart reports that spies from other companies repeatedly try to sneak into their factory, and bribes are plenty, but they still haven't been able to get their formula. Later that night, Lug is in his bed knowing that if the spies cannot steal the formula, they would just probably kidnap someone who knows it. And just as he predicted, he can feel an assassin sneaking inside his house. Unfortunately for the assassin, Tart stabs him while he's still hiding in the ceiling, and Maha captures him. The 2 girls then spend the remainder of the night torturing the assassin until he spills which companies hired him. 30 years earlier, the goddess once again reincarnated one of the world's finest, its greatest DJ and rapper. His lyrical murders are so legendary that the goddess reincarnated him to exterminate the heroes with his beats. Back in the present, the goddess checks up on him only to see that he is just a peasant getting bullied by others. It seems that in this era, he's not considered singing but just insulting people. Meanwhile, Lug spends one of his days visiting Daya in Vikon, knocking on her window and sharing tea with her. They also exchange spells they learn, such as a gravity reversal spell. Lug then gives her one of his gifts, chocolate. At first, Daya was apprehensive to try them because of their brown coloring, but she was delighted at the taste. Lug remarks that he's actually planning to sell the chocolates at his store the following month. While Lug is enjoying his date with Daya, Tart and Maha enjoy the house for themselves by cooking and living the normal life that was deprived of them in their childhood. At night, Lug says goodbye to Daya and returns to find the 2 girls sleeping on his bed. The next day when he wakes up, the girls are curiously sniffing the air. To Lug's embarrassment, it seems that he is not the only one who is up but also something else down there. Thus, both Tart, his servant, and Maha, his adopted sister, insist to Lug that they should take care of him next time he's feeling that way again. One night in Miltu, Maha's friends are walking through an alley when 2 men suddenly assault them. They threaten them with daggers and demand that they hand over all of their valuables. They even start leering at them when they notice their beautiful faces. Thankfully, Maha abruptly arrives and apprehends the 2 thieves. She dodges their attacks and puts her own knife against their throats, threatening to kill them if they ever touch the girls again. It's been 2 years since Lug had launched Orna, and the store is still booming as ever. Meanwhile, Tart arrives and reports to Lug about her mission. She hands him a bag of buttons, souvenirs from all the men she killed. Tart is creating such an impact on the battlefield that she now has the nickname Lightning Quick Battle Maiden. Lug has been sending her to various combat situations so she can get some battle experience, while Maha handles the store where she handles information and money. In the span of 2 years, Ilig Balor and his store Orna is now a household name throughout the lands thanks to their products moisturizer and chocolate. Lug had managed to create a large information network thanks to these. Later that night, he transfers all his responsibilities in Orna to Maha. She will be the one to handle it while Lug returns to his normal life as a Tuatha. Maha actually already has plans of expanding Orna's base beyond the city of Miltu. She shares his plans with Lug, who noticed something about it. Unbeknownst to Maha, Lug actually looked into Maha's childhood and past life. He had learned that she was the heiress of an influential trading company, but her parents were betrayed by their right-hand man. He murdered Maha's parents and stole the company, forcing Maha to flee for her life and live on the streets as an orphan. It seems that Maha's plans now are to take over her old company's stores and use them as stepping stones in furthering the spread of Orna. Lug approves of her plans and he tells her that he doesn't care if Maha brings her personal affairs into their business. As long as she achieves results, he is fine with that. Lastly, all of Maha's friends enter the room and thank Lug for everything he did for them. Lug smiles and asks them to look after his store for him. The next day, Maha washes Lug's hair, revealing Lug's original white hair. From that moment forward, Ilig Balor has left Miltu, and he is now Lug Tuatha again. Tart also dons her original uniform and they prepare to leave. Before they go, Maha hands Lug a lucky charm she made, and she confesses that she knows Lug is only using her because she has mana. But despite that, being able to help him makes her happy and she requests Lug to visit her once in a while. As Lug and Tart ride away, Maha promises to use the remainder of her life to help him. On the carriage, Tart remarks that she believes Maha's love for Lug is not as a brother or a friend, but something much deeper. However, Lug denies this and explains that Maha's feelings are just admiration. She just feels that way because Lug saved her. Meanwhile, a group of wolves abruptly blocks their path. The two disembark the carriage and Tart brandishes her spear. She plans to fight alone to demonstrate the results of her training. When a wolf charges at her, she lunges at it with her spear, stabbing it in the head. When another tries to attack her from behind, Tart quickly casts a spell that shoots magic out of her back and into the wolf, killing it. As for the last enemy, one throw from Tart's spear was enough to bring it down. Lug commends Tart's performance for managing to defeat all those magical beasts in just a couple of seconds. However, he also recognizes that the appearance of these monsters near human settlements means that the hero must be showing up soon too. When they reach Tuatha, Lug notices that the farms are all full of soybeans, the secret ingredient in the moisturizer's creation. The commoners rejoice at seeing Lug again and they thank him for giving them such booming business. Thanks to Orna, some of them were even able to buy new animal farms like cows. They once again give him a basket full of produce as thanks. When they reach the Tuatha villa, Esri welcomes her son in a warm embrace and a couple of sniffs. After getting her fill of Lug's scent and warmth, she thanks Tart for taking care of her son and they enter the house. In his study, Cyan congratulates Lug for reaching 14 years of age, a legal adult in their world. Not only that, he only instructed Lug to construct a merchant life for himself, yet now, all nobles know of Ilig Balor's name and cosmetic brand, Orna. However, Cyan admits that there is actually another reason why he sent Lug to Balor to learn how to become a merchant. He had wanted Lug to find another way to live beside their Tuatha way. Now, Lug could continue life as a merchant, not as an assassin. In fact, Balor himself advised Cyan to let Lug become a merchant instead. Lug asks his dad to clarify what he's saying, so Cyan states that Lug's hands haven't been stained by the blood of assassinations yet. He had only helped Cyan kill and he only eliminated death row criminals. This means Lug can still escape that kind of life. He divulges to Lug that it's also the Tuatha's role to be abandoned if their assassination gets exposed. Not only that, their clients could betray them too. He registered Lug as Ilig Balor so he can live as a merchant if he gets abandoned, or if he decides to quit as an assassin. With that, he asks Lug if he still wants to be a Tuatha. Lug stares at his father and tells him that he's choosing to be a Tuatha. The people of Tuatha and the individuals he met are important to him, so he wants to protect them. He can still be a merchant if he gets abandoned. He won't carry out assassinations because he was ordered to like in his past life. He will now do it for his own happiness. And truthfully, there is one more reason. He needs to be a noble because he is in love with Dia Vicon. A merchant wouldn't be able to marry her, so he has to be a Tuatha. Cyan laughs at his reasoning and acknowledges his decision. Therefore, he gives Lug his first solo assassination target, a corrupt noble. Lug's target is Count Asbavenkor, a noble selling military secrets to neighboring kingdoms in exchange for an illegal drug called Visine, which he then sells throughout the kingdom. However, Lug wants to see for himself if this target really should be assassinated. He writes a coded message to Maha, asking for her to make arrangements so they can infiltrate the Count's mansion. The next morning, Lug finds his mother silently entering his room while he's sleeping. It turns out that Tart told her about Lug's morning accident in the past and she wanted to see it for herself. She even stays in the room watching Lug dress up for the morning, forcing Lug to kick her out in annoyance. Later, Esri then presents Lug with a couple of pictures of girls. They are all different noble girls willing to be put in an arranged marriage with Lug. Why? Because Esri wants grandchildren now. Tart voices her complaints and argues with Esri. Thus, Esri suggests that Tart can instead bear Lug's children. It would be a good thing too since she doesn't have any family baggage and they could immediately try. Tart turns as red as a tomato while Lug himself scolds his mother. That night, Lug and Tart sneak out of the villa and use Mana to run to their target. While Maha uses her information network to learn what's behind the scenes, Lug himself will find out what he can publicly. 25 years earlier, the goddess had reincarnated the world's finest paparazzi. With his skills used to disparage countless celebrities with scathing articles, the goddess wants him to also demoralize the hero and prevent the world's destruction. Back in the present, this paparazzi actually plans to jump in front of the hero's carriage and frame them for a hit and run. Unfortunately, a stray horse bulldozes over him, ruining his plans. Meanwhile, Lug reaches the merchant city of Pisar in the territory of Count Venkor. Inside, they witness a multitude of injured soldiers in carts and by the side of the road. They were soldiers forced into battle at a disadvantage due to their military secrets being leaked. When they enter an alley, a girl happily asks them if they would like some gooseberry jam. Seeing her in a deserted alleyway rings alarm bells in Lug's head and he smashes all the girl's jars. From behind the girl, a group of men abruptly appears and asks Lug why he destroyed their merchandise. In an instant, Lug and Tart lunge at them and knock them all out. They then confront the girl and ask why she's selling drugs. The girl leads him to her mother, a scrawny woman who immediately grabs her daughter and demands that she be given more Visine. When she failed to give her some, the drug-addicted mother hits her daughter and lashes out. Lug calmly restrains her and uses his magic so that her body would no longer crave the drug. However, he warns the girl that her mother's psychological dependence would still not change. When they return home to the Tuatha de Villa, Lug and Tart see that shipments of cosmetics from Maha have arrived. Alongside those were her reports about Count Venkor. He truly is the ringleader of the drug operation who claims that the mafia transports the drugs and bribes the nobles. With those reasons and other nobles backing him up, the royal family couldn't make a move on him. Thus, they had no choice but to order Tuatha to assassinate him. Seeing all of these, Lug concludes that Count Venkor truly deserves to die. A few days later, Lug and his Ilig Balor persona and Maha travel to visit Count Venkor. On the way there, Maha asks Lug to not bury his romantic feelings for them. At first, she and Maha did see Lug as their older brother, but they couldn't help but fall in love with him. As a noble, he can even accept them as their mistresses and still pursue Miss Daya. After a few hours of traveling, they finally reach Count Venkor's villa, where his wife welcomes them to the house. Pretending to be peddling their moisturizer, Lug and Maha allow Countess Venkor to test their products. When Countess Venkor asks why they chose her to be the first to try their new products, Lug admits that since Count Venkor is one of the up-and-coming nobles of the region, she was the best person to advertise their new product. Countess Venkor was glad to hear this, and she admits that a few years ago, they were actually just poor nobles, so she is glad by the change in their fortunes. Count Venkor then enters the room himself and invites Lug to a party he is holding in their honor. At the party, Lug and Maha advertise their new products to the other nobles while Count and Countess Venkor also enjoy their love together. But as the party ends and the night deepens, Lug returns near the villa in his assassination garb. He uses his Tuatha eyes to locate Count Venkor's position and uses earth magic to create a sniper rifle. In just one shot, he kills Count Venkor. As they are about to leave, he can see Countess Venkor crying over her husband's body. In the past, the killing had never moved Lug's heart, but now his heart was shaken. Tart notices his forlorn face and gives him a gentle hug. This awakens Lug from his trance and they walk away. He doesn't regret the assassination, but he won't forget it either. That is who Lug Tuatha is as an assassin. After living on an uninhabited island as training, Lug and Tart travel across the ocean and head back to the mainland. Meanwhile, waiting for them on the shore welcoming them back was Maha. While they travel back home in a carriage, Maha reports what's currently happening on the mainland. As good news, she had found the divine weapon that Lug asked her to locate. A divine weapon is a tool possessing unbelievable abilities that can't be made by human hands. They are incredibly valuable objects that existed since ancient times and cannot be destroyed. This particular divine treasure that Maha found is the magic spear Gibalg. She is trying to purchase it from its current owner, a man named Satanta Macness. He is also known as Cran's Hound and the person most likely to be the hero. As for bad news, Maha informs them that a civil war has broken out in the neighboring kingdom of Swoigel. Even Ms. Daya's house Vicon has joined as part of the kingdom's army, and on the side of the rebel forces, there's a soldier giving them a lot of trouble. The very same man, Satanta Macness. A few days later, Lug heads off to visit Daya. Daya was extremely happy at the sudden visit and prepared tea for him. However, Lug solemnly asks if she's okay. Daya was confused at this, so Lug explains that he heard about the war. Daya informs him that it's true there have been some skirmishes near the capital, but those are so far away from their region that they are barely affected. Moreover, House Vicon made a name for itself with magic and has plenty of magic users in their ranks. If only there was a house of aristocratic assassins in their own kingdom, then they could have prevented the civil war by assassinating the rebelling nobles. Lug mentions to Daya that one of the rebels has a divine treasure, and he is most possibly the hero. If he is, then human strength won't be enough to defeat him and Daya is still in danger. As a Lig Balor, he can get Daya and her family to escape to a safe kingdom. Daya gets angry at Lug's offer and she reminds Lug that she is still the daughter of Count Vicon. She was born with the responsibility of protecting the kingdom, its land, and its people. As such, she couldn't just abandon all of them and flee. Daya then abruptly changes the topic and insists that they should just enjoy the town instead of talking about sad topics. Just like Lug, she changes her hair color and proceeds to stroll through the market hand in hand with Lug. For their first stop, Lug suggests different food stops and restaurants in the area, surprising Daya that he seems to know more about their own region than her. Meanwhile, Lug notices something peculiar in the surroundings. A passing merchant seems like a veteran. Numerous people throughout the area seem to be skilled warriors too. Daya informs him that this must be because the draft has brought a lot of people with military experience into town. Daya then spots an archery arcade in the distance and she asks Lug to win one of the prizes for her. Lug gladly picks up the bow and arrow, but when he's about to shoot, Daya blocks his view and tells him that he cannot use his magic because that's cheating. He also cannot use his skills because that would be unfair to the store. Since he cannot use magic and his skills, Lug decides to just let Daya do the shooting with his instructions guiding her. Within 3 shots, she managed to win a teddy bear and they happily went to their next destination. 20 years earlier, the world's finest teacher was reincarnated by the goddess and was commanded to teach the hero. After she's gone, the goddess' whole demeanor changes and she starts looking for souls to reincarnate who can stop the hero's eventual rampage. Back in the present, Lug and Daya enjoy lasagna for lunch. Daya remarks how Lug's cooking still tastes better, so Lug promises to cook for her the next time she visits Tuatha. All of a sudden, Daya's face becomes sad. However, she suddenly changes the topic and continues on their date. They are walking through the town again when they notice a boy sitting by the stairs. The boy is about to cry, so Lug uses the teddy bear Daya won earlier to cheer up the boy. Thanks to the teddy bear, they were able to learn that he had lost sight of his mother. Daya casts a spell and pulsating magic emanates from her palm. They were then able to locate the boy's mother's cries and follow them to her. As a reward for Lug's kindness, Daya invites him to a place special to her, the hot springs of Vicon. Lug hesitates upon learning that the hot springs are a mixed-gender bath, but Daya doesn't seem perturbed about this and explains that she had reserved the whole place for them. Daya starts disrobing, which makes Lug once again realize how people of this era have little objection to being seen naked. Mentally, he should not be distracted with seeing other people, but he was worried that his body might react differently. Daya then excitedly pulls him along inside where a hot spring is surrounded by trees. They start splashing water against each other and Daya accidentally slips. Lug teaches her how to float on her back and they both float above the water, watching the sun while holding hands. Daya wishes that they could stay like that forever. She also tells Lug that just like how he loves Tuatha very much, she also loves Vicon and their town too. That's why she wants to serve them until the very end. In other words, she doesn't want to flee. Lug respects her decision but still informs her that everything is ready if she ever changes her mind. Later that afternoon, as Lug is about to leave, Daya tells him that she might be busy for a while because of the war. She doubts that they'll be able to see each other again until things calm down, so she'll just inform him when they can meet again. After Lug leaves, the commoners milling around the town shed off their disguises and don their armor. The soldiers all kneel as Daya walks back to the castle with tears in her eyes and whispers her goodbyes to Lug. A few days later, Lug is suddenly informed by Tart that there's an emergency back at the villa. When he returns, he sees that their father is treating a wounded soldier. They were just hired for a new job and Cyan wants Lug to do it. Their next assassination target is Count Vicon's daughter, Dia Vicon. Cyan informs Lug that he will respect his decisions if ever he decides to turn the job down. However, Lug first wants to know a couple of things. House Vicon are nobles of Swoigel, a neighboring kingdom, so why are they interfering with their affairs? Their house conducts assassinations for their own kingdom, and killing Dia doesn't help them. Cyan agrees with all of Lug's points and admits to him that if their involvement is actually discovered, it can become an international problem. Instead, this assassination is based on personal favors. House Vicon fought for the royal army in the civil war but they lost badly and were defeated. Count Vicon then paid their indemnity by surrendering most of his land and wealth, but the other nobles wanted more. They wanted Dia. Count Vicon and even Dia agreed to their demands, but Vicon's vassals didn't. Dia was so popular with their vassals and people that they formed a volunteer army, barricaded themselves in the castle, and confined Count Vicon and Dia within. The other nobles treated this as an insurrection and an opposing army has already been dispatched to besiege the castle. To stop another civil war from breaking out, Dia's father, Count Vicon himself, had requested House Tuatha to assassinate his daughter and stop all the quarrels. However, this is all just a facade. Since they have already been branded as insurrectionists, they would all be killed, so no matter who wins the war, Dia can't be saved. And so, he wants Tuatha to pretend to assassinate Dia but in reality, help her escape. Lug was surprised that his father accepted such a job in the first place, but Cyan professes that he owes a great debt to Count Vicon. If Lug doesn't go, then he himself would. Of course, he knows that he would run out of mana even before reaching Vicon and wouldn't be able to do anything. Lug knows that there are so many risks in taking this job. Not only that, he'll be bending their principles as House Tuatha of only serving their own kingdom. However, he already told himself that in this life, he won't live as a tool but make his own decisions. And so, he proclaims that he'll be accepting his job. His father recognizes Lug's decision and admits that he himself only bent these principles once. It was for his wife, Esri, who was also a daughter of House Vicon. He never thought that his own son would make the same choice as him. A few hours later, Lug is ready and about to leave the villa when Tart volunteers her aid. Lug rejects her aid since Vicon is 300 kilometers away from their lands and Tart wouldn't be able to make it. However, Tart already considered this and she informs Lug that even with his rapid recovery skill, he won't recover enough upon reaching Vicon. That's why she offers to carry Lug partway there. She then steps in front of Lug and uses her mana to create a wind barrier in front of them. With her running ahead, Lug can ride in her slipstream. There's a lot of wind resistance when traveling at high speed. As one's speed increases, the wind resistance increases exponentially too. By using Tart's wind shield to block the air, Tart is lowering Lug's resistance, allowing him to conserve his energy. Not only that, she is even pulling her along with negative pressure. However, running at full speed while maintaining that wind shield is very mentally and physically exhausting for Tart. He couldn't believe that Tart is willing to go that far just to save Dia. Meanwhile, Tart is remembering the day that Lug saved her. She knew from the start that Lug just saved her because she has mana and he was planning to use her as a tool. That would probably be a sad thing for a normal person, but for Tart, it made her happy. He gave her a reason to live and for that, she will dedicate her whole life to him. Rain or shine, Tart runs ahead of Lug, carrying him along. Lug shouts at her to stop already, but Tart just soldiers on. She knows how Lug always said that he doesn't want to be a tool anymore, but she will be the ultimate tool for him. After long treks of land, Tart's shield finally breaks and Lug catches her as she is flung away. Tart cries and apologizes for not making it this far, but Lug thanks her since they are in fact very near Vicon already. She tells Lug to go save the girl he loves and Lug runs ahead. With Lug now not able to see her, Tart lets go of her tears and cries her heart out. 14 years ago, the goddess had painstakingly sent numerous souls to be reincarnated in the hopes that they would stop the hero. After watching and refining her research, she finally finds the perfect soul that has the best chance to stop them. The only thing she has to do now is wait for that soul to die. That soul was the world's finest assassin. Back in the present, Lug reaches Vicon Castle in the middle of the night. He counts 1,500 enemy numbers besieging the castle that only has around 200 defenders. With his Tuatha eyes, he can even see magic users dotting the enemy army. This makes Lug curious as to how the Vicone castle is still managing to hold out despite the superior enemy numbers. Looking at their camp, the enemy seems to be cautious of projectiles. Lug summons his gun and starts shooting at the magic users on horseback, correctly guessing that they must be the leaders. The enemy immediately responds to the sudden barrage from their rear and rains crossbow bolts on Lug's position. Lug realizes that if they respond that fast, then that must mean they know what guns are. That explains why the enemy still hasn't won the battle despite their numbers. They couldn't send the magic users in the front to blast the walls open because they get shot at by Daya. Lug casts a wind magic spell to pick up sounds throughout the battlefield, and he learns that his attack caused the enemy army to be confused. He creates a bow and attaches one of his stockpiled far stones at the tip of the arrow, filling it with fire magic to maximize its explosion and mixing some earth magic to create shrapnels. Lug launches the arrow into the night sky, which silently falls onto the enemy, creating a huge explosion. He basically created a silent artillery. Of course, the Vicone soldiers behind the walls took advantage of the enemy army's disarray, and they quickly charged out, cutting them all up. Lug decides that this is the best time to sneak through the battlefield and infiltrate the castle. He casts wind magic again to discern the safest way to Daya's tower. In order to fake Daya's death, no enemy or ally should spot him. He finally manages to sneak in and Daya runs into his embrace. 14 years ago, the goddess watches as the world's finest assassin dies in a fiery airplane explosion. She's been waiting for that for a long time, and she quickly jumps into action, reincarnating his soul and giving him his mission. That was how the world's finest assassin gets reincarnated in another world as an aristocrat. Back in the present, Lug finally meets with Daya's father, Dimmer Vicone. Dimmer compliments Lug for not only arriving to take Daya away physically, but romantically too. He then informs Lug of his plan to draw the enemy to him by going on a rampage and vanishing after allowing the others to escape. He also plans to counterattack so the Swoigel kingdom can be returned to its rightful owners. Lug acknowledges Dimmer's plan and informs him that he will set the room on fire. They will make it look like Daya had committed suicide. He had already brought a fallen soldier he got from the battlefield to act as Daya's body double. He then instructs Daya to yell out to the soldiers below that she doesn't want anyone getting hurt because of her, so she would rather just end her own life without belonging to anyone. Daya follows Lug's plan and opens the window to scream out, but Lug suddenly gets a bad feeling. It was the same feeling he had in his previous life when he felt like danger was approaching. At that instant, someone from the enemy camp throws a magic spear directly at them. The spear rains magic down on the battlefield, killing numerous soldiers, and upon hitting the castle, it explodes in a fiery explosion. Thankfully, Lug managed to tackle Daya out of the way. They see the spear magically hovering in the air and abruptly returning to its owner. Using his magic eyes, Lug can see the new enemy emanating a ridiculous amount of mana. He quickly creates a cannon and sends a blast at the enemy, destroying the hill he is standing on. But when the dust settles, the enemy knight is still standing, laughing and complimenting Lug for finally letting him feel pain. Lug recognizes the knight's skill as the S-rank berserk, allowing someone to exponentially increase their physical and magical abilities through anger. Dimmer instructs Lug to retreat with Daya since he recognizes the new enemy. It was the man who frightened the royal family into surrendering and ended the civil war. The man shouts out to Lug a challenge to a duel. If Lug wins, he will withdraw all their forces and never make a move on Vicone again. Lug couldn't believe that the man is still rational despite having the berserk skill active. This must mean that this man has another skill that suppresses it, making him the man most likely to be a hero, Setanta Mac Ness. Not only that, the spear from earlier must be the divine treasure Gibalg. Meanwhile, back at Tuathada, Cyan and Esri receive a letter about the hero. Lug realizes that he has no choice but to accept Setanta's challenge, and yet he would definitely lose a duel against him. Daya vehemently rejects Lug's plan and declares that she will fight with him. Lug rejects her offer, however, and reminds her that he's not a knight or a hero. He is an assassin, so he will just assassinate Setanta. He creates a large piece of metal and sends it away with magic. Meanwhile, he asks Dimmer to come with him to witness the duel. Dimmer suggests an alternative plan of using their remaining men to distract Setanta and allow Lug and Daya to escape. But Lug rejects this plan. They then head over to the battlefield where Setanta is, and Lug accepts his challenge. Lug can see that Setanta had already healed from all his injuries, further proof that this man must be the hero. Lug tells Setanta that he should order his subordinates to follow the agreements of their duel since they might double-cross them when Lug kills Setanta. Setanta grins at Lug's confidence in winning the duel, but he follows Lug's wishes and commands his army. Next, Lug asks what would happen if he dies, so Setanta exclaims that he will kidnap Daya and slaughter the remaining forces there. Lastly, Lug requests that everyone should withdraw from the battlefield since they might get caught in their attacks. With everything settled, Lug announces that he will toss a coin to signal the start of the duel. Unbeknownst to everyone else, everything from the moment he left Daya's side was already planned by Lug. All the questions, requests, and conversation with Setanta was just Lug's way of buying time. When the coin hits the ground and signals the start of their duel, a gigantic explosion suddenly fills the whole battlefield. This assassination spell was based on a space weapon from Lug's past life. Metal is loaded into satellites which was then dropped into the enemy position, creating a weapon comparable to nuclear weapons. Back on Earth, this weapon was scrapped because it takes too much energy to transport the metals into space and it only burns up in the atmosphere. But in this new world of swords and magic, there exists a spell that controls the gravity of an object. This spell was then improved by Daya, and a few minutes earlier, Lug used it to send a large piece of metal into orbit. He then uses wind magic to prevent it from burning up as it falls through the atmosphere, and he even trained on an uninhabited island to aim it. This was the spell that Lug developed to assassinate the hero. The nuclear explosion envelops Setanta and completely destroys the whole battlefield, blasting Lug back in the process. When he woke up, it was already morning and Daya was trying to wake him among the rubble of the castle. She asks him why he risked it all to save her, but Lug just shows her the far stone she gave him when they were kids and reminds her of their promise. However, they couldn't fake Daya's assassination and death anymore since there were no more enemies to witness it. Lug suddenly kisses Daya, and for the first time in his life, he failed an assassination attempt. A few hours later, Lug returned with Daya to the Tuatha. Her father, Count Dimmer, went into hiding, and everything is back to normal. Cyan congratulates Lug for bringing Daya back alive and announces that from now on, she'll conceal her identity and live there as his younger sister. But he has one other thing to tell Lug. It seems that the hero has appeared in their kingdom. Lug is stunned to learn that Setanta wasn't actually the hero, but his father continues to explain that the hero's appearance means that the demon lord will soon appear. Thus, they should keep an eye on the situation. Meanwhile, at the capital, the hero, Lord Epona Rhiannon, has arrived.